Okay, so now that we have our arrays set up and done some of our mathematical manipulations, we're ready to start using the graphical function in Excel. But let's make it a little easier on ourselves to do this. First off, we don't need every one of these columns, these arrays of data. We really only need the thread length and we need the time squared, because we've already seen that when we do our graphical method, those become our x and our y axis. The thread length becomes our x axis, the time squared becomes our y axis. So why don't we take this column and copy it and paste it below, and then take this column and copy it and paste it below. So all you have to do is a Command C and paste it below. So I'm just going to pick this spot right here, and I've got them preset up to go so that boom, now I have just the two columns that I need to create my axes. So once you've done that, now what we're going to do is get this set for our graphical our graphing. So what we need to do is highlight just the data in those two arrays, and we need to find where on the menu bar is our graphical selection. So I'm going to go from home to insert, and bingo, as soon as I do, I can see right here is my button in the menu bar for a scatter. Remember, I told you a scatter is all that we need. We don't need any of the lines because we're going to add that trend line. So I'm going to click on the scatter button, and when I do, I will get my initial setup for the graph. So you can move this around, you can resize it to give it a nice look for what you're trying to do for your lab report. So when I select this and get it to do the wizard, now I have to go back and start doing something with it. It has no labels on the axes, it has no chart title, and the values in the array, which you can see we have some nice slope here. We do not have a y-intercept. It does not cross the y-axis. So when we get ready to do our equation of the line, we already know there's no plus B, so we're going to delete that. Okay, so let's take a look at this. First off, what I can do very easily is double click on chart title, and when I do, it illuminates, and I can change that right here to my chart title. So let's call it graphical method. Okay, it just that simple. Okay, now let's go over to our axes, and if I click on this, now what I need is something that is going to allow me to put in my y-axis title. So let's go back up here again to insert and see if there's something here that allows me to do that. Well, I don't see anything in the menu here that's asking me about adding a label. So let's go to page layout. Nothing in page layout. How about formulas? Nothing in formulas. How about data? Review? View. Okay, I'm not seeing anything here. Oh, look at there. Chart design. So chart design is the one that we need to add our elements. You see over here, add chart elements. That's what we want to choose to add our elements. So when I click on that, I can change my axis. I can change my axis titles. I can change my chart titles. Okay, add labels. We don't need labels. It just clutters the graph. So let's just go to chart titles. So I'm in the vertical, right, up, down. So I'm going to select primary vertical, and it puts a box on there for me. Well, we know that the time squared is going to be our y-axis. Why don't we just type right there, y-axis. Let's type right over here, x-axis, so we know which is which. So again, double click on this till it highlights everything and change that to time squared. Okay, and then let's put our units in here. Parentheses, time, type the number 2 and close the parentheses. Okay, Now what I can do is I can highlight that number 2 down here. Let's grow this a little bit so you can see it. I'm going to highlight the number 2, and I need to change that to a superscript. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on this, and I want to come on, stay on. I want to add a superscript to this. In PCs, it's probably going to be a little different for you. So I'm going to right click on this, format the axis title here on the bottom. If I click on that, do I get any choices here? Text options. Okay, I don't see anything there. What I'm looking for is the value that allows me to change this to a superscript. Okay, sometimes along the top here it will allow us to do that, and right now I'm not seeing that for any of the choices. So I need a choice here that allows me to superscript that number, and right now I'm not seeing it. Let's click on font. Okay, let's see if font is where it's at. So I click on font, and lo and behold, there are my choices. I don't want subscript, I want superscript. So when I click on superscript and I say OK, bingo, you see that it changed it to T squared. Okay, so now we have that one set up. So let's do the same thing for the horizontal axis. Remember, we went back here to chart design, we went to add chart element, titles. Now we're going to look at the horizontal, and as soon as I click on it, it adds the box, and now I'm going to change this to what? Length, right? And what units are we primarily using? We're using centimeters. So now we've got everything set up on our graph except for the trend line. Now we need to add the trend line so we can see our equation of the line and our r squared. So if I click on the points here, and I should be able to again do a right click on this, and it should allow me to add a trend line. Well, if I look right down here on the bottom, lo and behold, add trend line. Now when I click on add trend line, the two things we want is we don't want an intercept, but we do want to display the equation of the line on the chart, and we do want to add that r squared value, so it gives us some certainty. Okay, the other thing that we can do is if we don't like the color or the size, we want to keep that line fairly nondescript, we can go back up here and change our values to change the color and the type. So along this edge over here, we can see that we've got a width. I've got it currently at 1.5. Let's drop it down to 1 point. Okay, and what if we wanted a different color, something a little more distinguishable? Let's change it to dark red. Okay, now what I have here is a value for the line. Seem to have lost Camtasia. Come on, let's see, Excel. Okay, there we go. I lost the screen there, sorry about that. So now we're done with that, we can just close it. So now we've got our trend line. You'll notice though on the equation we've still got that nasty y-intercept. Okay, let's take this and move it down here, take the whole thing and move it down here someplace where it's a little more distinguishable. Let's highlight the value that is our y-intercept, delete it, delete the negative sign, and now we have the equation of the line. I'm going to move this up here. But as you can see, the variables now don't match our variables. We need time squared and length. So let's take y, which we identified over here, y as our time squared value. Let's overtype it. So let's type t, the number 2. Let's highlight it, and let's go ahead and Again, select by doing a right click. We're going to select the font again, and we're going to superscript that number 2. And there we go. We have time squared is equal to x. Well, what is x? Well, we know x is typically a length, but let's go ahead and change it to L, because that was what we had in our array. If we look over here, we can see we called it length, so why not call it length? So now we have our equation of the line. We got rid of the y-intercept. We have the r squared value. We've got everything now that we need. You'll notice I don't have a series marker over here. I don't need the series marker. So graphical method for the title, time squared on the y-axis, length on the x-axis. I've got my trend line. I've got my equation of the line. So now we have set up the chart portion for this lab. So let's stop this here and move to the next section to do our calculations.